I'm really happy to have you in the journal. You are the last one artist that I invited. So thank you, Louis, for being here for this end.
Sure.
We arrive at 19 artists, so I think this is the right moment to close this program and have you just your voice and your story that can describe this situation, your situation, but in general, I think you have a clear point of view of all this situation. I think it's good to start talking about the background of your work and talking better about your research in the nature, in the forest, and then we can talk about your new work, this new
Hmm.
series that came during the lockdown.
Sure. So I guess I've been working on quite a long-term research project, and that's originally how I met you in 2016
Yeah, on
in
2017.
Palace.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, sorry, 2017 in Palace
2017. Yeah,
Project
it
and
was.
Studios. When I had the show Alien Architecture, and
Yeah.
I'm still working with and researching in that same area. It's commercial forestry in Ireland. Um, the kind of quick history is looking at how and why Ireland as an island was deforested by the turn of the century.
Mhm.
So it had less than 1% forest cover in 1900. Looking at the different kind of political structures that resulted in the deforestation of Ireland. It's heavily connected with British rule in Ireland, but not exclusively. That's not exclusively responsible for it either. And then also the certain decisions and choices that were made after 1900 that resulted in non-native trees
Mm.
dominating Irish forestry. So yeah, there's one kind of crucial guy within the history of Irish forestry called Augustine Henry. He was an instrumental botanist and forester, and a really interesting guy. He was originally a customs officer stationed in China, and
Okay.
that was really his main career. He basically retired as a customs officer, and went to France when he had retired and studied forestry, and then in later in life just began this whole other career of forestry. Ended up setting up the School of Forestry in what is now UCD, and then also went to sit on different chairs of forestry across the UK and Europe. And it was through his research and through his extensive plant collecting that he discovered that conifer trees, in particular the Sitka spruce tree, will grow way, way faster in Ireland than it will in its native North America. So it'll grow about 30% faster. In general, it's a faster growing tree than our native broadleaf trees. So oak, ash, birch, beech, all of those kinds of trees will reach maturity in about 50 to 100 years, whereas the Sitka spruce will reach maturity in about 20 to 30 years. So it was really through this kind of research and discovery and trial and error, I guess, that he advised an Irish governmental committee in 1907 to veto a plan to reforest Ireland with native trees, so
Mm.
native broadleaf trees, and instead plant non-native conifer trees, in particular the Sitka spruce. So, fast forward 100 years, 110 years later, and Ireland is really plagued by this Sitka spruce tree. It's planted in monoculture, these kind of monoculture crop plantations. There's no biodiversity as a result. A huge amount of pesticides
Yeah.
and chemical herbicides are used to combat things like the pine beetle. So there's no native predator for things like that in Ireland. And then, really, like when any plant is planted in such large quantities in monoculture plantations, there's just going to be knock-on effects. It's not the fault of the plant. I mean, the Sitka spruce is actually quite a beautiful tree, and it can exist in a biodiverse and harmonious way. But when it's planted in monoculture plantations, it just wreaks havoc on the soil, the biodiversity, the environment, the wildlife. It acidifies the soil in massive quantities when it's planted in massive quantities. So really, you know, this kind of earnest gesture, this earnest kind of piece of advice by Augustine Henry in the early 1900s, which was really in reaction to Ireland not having a forestry industry or culture. So this kind of earnest piece of advice ended up being really detrimental to the Irish landscape and Irish biodiversity. So it's kind of one of these projects where you know, you scratch the surface a little bit and you just kind of go deeper and deeper and deeper. So I'm at the point now where any opportunity I have to make work or present work or collaborate is a different kind of aspect of this history or this historical timeline. So the alien architecture show that I had was really the beginning of the research, and then some work that I've shown with you and Over Nature has been kind of a repeat of that work, and then there's also been new work that we're going to see in Ennistimon on Friday. And I'm in the process of making a film as well, which will hopefully be finished next year in 2021.
Okay.
So yeah, it's really it's been a huge kind of undertaking in terms of the amount of research, the amount of information available. But yeah, I'm using different opportunities to kind of branch out, pardon the pun, in different directions.
Yeah. And now, how you are developing this research, because now it's hard to go around now, not anymore so like before, but during the lockdown I know that you continue your research, but staying close to your house, of course, because it was impossible to go so far away from your home. So you are living in Dublin, so I think close to the city center. So this is I think it was harder for people that they are living in Dublin instead of for other people that they are living in the countryside, because of course in the countryside you have the opportunity to walk and go around and it was possible not meet anyone just for kilometers, but in Dublin that was surely harder. So let me know your experience during the time and how you developed this research during the lockdown. And then if you want to, you can just extend your explanation about what is happening now in your practice like artist.
Sure. No, you're right. I live in Dublin 8 in Rialto, so it's not the city center, but it's very close. But it's, you know, it's high kind of density population around here. It's, you know, terraced houses, cottages, flats, apartments. It's all of that kind of stuff. There's not so many green spaces very close to me, but I'm lucky enough that I live close to the War Memorial Park. It's about a 2-kilometer drive from my house, so I was just within that kind of travel radius. So yeah, just as lockdown hit, I mean, just like everybody else, I had so many plans and kind of things in motion that I had to pause or cancel or put on hold. In relation to this research, I was about to visit Kew Gardens in England, where they have this massive archive and collection, and housed in that collection is a series of letters by Augustine Henry that he wrote when he was living in China. He was a prolific letter writer, and I think it's important that at some stage I read those letters. There's professional letters and also personal letters in the collection. He has a beautiful way of writing, and he has a beautiful way of talking about the kind of native Chinese landscape and the flora and the fauna that he found there. And when he was stationed in China, I mean, he discovered, or at least sent back, you know, more than 10,000 plant samples. Many of which today are named after him. Many rose and lily species are
Yeah.
named after Augustine Henry. So I thought it was important that I read those letters. I'd made an appointment to go and read them this summer. So the archive is still closed. Travel restrictions
Yeah.
are still in place. So obviously I haven't done that yet. I also had some plans to visit some Quilcha forests and see the kind of structural mechanical processing of those forests and how trees are felled and processed and cut and chopped up. Again, that's on hold. Access is very restricted at the moment. So I kind of felt quite stunted.
Yeah.
Really, I didn't have access to my studio. I don't really have space in my house to work from home. I mean, I can use a computer, but I can't really make work or
Yeah,
turn it
it's
into
not
a
the
photography
same.
studio. So I was really stunted for a long time, and I didn't really know what to do. And after a while, I was like, okay, just cop on, do something. I discovered these two little white pine trees close to where I walk my dog. They were just coming into season, so they were producing a lot of pollen. The new cones were growing, and I decided to start taking some samples of the tree, some needles, some twigs, some new growth, some pine cones, male cones, female cones, and I was just I took them home. I photographed them by my window, just very basic black and white photographs on some white card. I was thinking about Anna Atkins, the world's first female published photographer. I was thinking about Karl Blossfeldt, the art teacher who made these
Yeah.
photographic plates so his students could draw them. So I was kind of back to basics, bare minimum, work at what you can. And so that's how those photographs that I sent you came about.
So it's interesting to see how anyway it was possible for you work and find something interesting anyway to show, because this photograph anyway, they are beautiful, they have something to show and interesting, just it was good anyway, even you worked on something very simple, probably, like.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's almost a reflection of the lockdown experience.
Yeah.
It's quiet. It's minimal. It's pared down.
Yeah.
It's not flashy. So it's in some kind of funny way. It's almost like this kind of reflection of my state of mind.
This is what happened to you like artist, but what happened to you like person, your feelings, and also how how did you live this situation, the lockdown, and now what's happening to you, just because lockdown is gone and we are starting a new, I think, reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to know your personal point of view of this situation, and all this, also this political and social problems that they are happening around the world. So it's not only about the lockdown, but I think there are so many things that they are happening just in this period. So not only the virus, but also all these problems that they are affecting our society, I think.
No, you're totally right, and I think I mean, it's been such a monumental shift in every direction
Yeah.
for everybody, um, and I think people are almost afraid to take time to let the dust settle and kind of find their feet again. There seemed to be this huge rush to get to the
Yeah.
new normal, and to be zooming all over the place, and um continue the momentum, and don't stop. And I think it's actually okay to stop and not be productive for a little while, and to really figure out what's happening on a personal level with yourself and with your family, with your friends, your own circles. I mean that's why I wasn't super productive during lockdown in terms of my practice. I kept it going. I read a little bit. I was researching online a little bit. I took some photographs, but there was certainly a massive slowing down of my rate of production. And kind of when I got towards the end of that, I started writing, which is something I don't often do. I'm not a writer, and I'm I don't plan to do anything with the writing, but it just seemed like this natural way of processing everything that had happened. And I think the lockdown and I think the pandemic, it kind of provided this new framework that we can look at things in our society, and it highlighted the gaps and the shortcomings in how we look after people. And it's usually the most vulnerable people in our society, the sick or the elderly or the poor. So it's this kind of framework that we can look at how our government helps people and how our community helps people. And certainly for me, living in Dublin 8, kind of right in the middle of everything, like there's wealthy people, there's poorer people, there's class inequality. I'm thinking about things like off licenses that sell alcohol being allowed to stay open as an essential service, and I'm also thinking about addiction services being forced to close during lockdown. So what does that do to a community that has a drug issue or a drink issue? How does that make sense, and how does that help members of that community? Because it really doesn't help them. It just causes more problems. It hinders them. And yeah, I was just kind of just then of course then I was thinking about people in direct provision and how their experience of lockdown or the pandemic is just astronomically different to ours, and just inconceivably worse. So I'm kind of thinking about these different inequalities and shortcomings and failings of our communities and our government, and so that's what I've kind of been writing about and thinking about.
Okay, so yeah, I think this pandemic is creating so many inequalities in all our society, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's creating them. I think it's highlighting them.
Highlighting, yes,
Yeah.
that is the correct word.
Yeah, like it's most of these problems, most of these issues were already there, and I think it's really showing the roots of those problems, or it's really showing the shortcomings of the systems in place to either help or to pretend to help these people. I mean, I've had my own issues in lockdown. This kind of expectation that everybody has a spare room in their house to work in. Well, I don't. I'm Skyping you on my couch because I don't have a desk in my house. Which is fine. That's it's not an issue. But there does seem to be this kind of institutional expectation that, oh, fine, let's just all work from home. Put a desk in your spare room, put a desk in your corner. But not everybody has a spare room, not everybody has a spare corner in their house. And that's just one kind of small observation. But when you go further than that, you start seeing the real issues during lockdown, which I think I just mentioned. So it's been an intense time for kind of reflection and observation, and hopefully change as well. I mean, I hope that I'm not the only person seeing these issues, and I hope I'm not the only person that is trying to maybe do something about them or wants them to change. So hopefully maybe towards the end of COVID-19, if there ever is an end to it, hopefully we'll start to see some real change that helps people.
Yeah, I'm not so positive, because I think every time people they are able to forget so quickly. So these are problems that now we are facing because the COVID-19 and the lockdown and everything else. But I think when people now, I can see everywhere, I think now here in Switzerland or in Italy, that the situation is that people, they want absolutely to come back to their normality. They don't want to think anymore about the lockdown or the COVID. And just they are thinking that probably it's good to come back to the normality for economical reasons and all the other probably reasons that I can see, because anyway they are reasons not so valid, because we have to think about this virus that is affecting so many people in their body and their mind. But anyway, in our daily life, I think, because it was the same for me. I'm living in an apartment. It's so small, and at the time I shared this space with my partner, and it was not easy to work at the time. So yeah, so this inequality is it's visible also here, that I'm not in Ireland. So in I think in every country, I don't know in the world, but surely in Europe, it's possible to see this inequality. Because if you are lucky that you are living in a big house or just close to the sea or some other park or other good situation, you are lucky. Otherwise, you can just stay there and wait.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the city was a really grim place during lockdown. I went into this Dublin city twice. Kind of within the 2 kilometer radius would bring me to the end of Cork Street, kind of onto Wexford Street. And then when it was extended to 5 kilometers, I could kind of cycle down kind of right into the heart of the city, and it was a really grim place. It was, the life and soul of the city was gone. Everything was closed. The only people that you would really see were homeless people and some drug users on the street, and it was just a reminder that these are the people who are not being looked after, and
Yeah.
they're the most vulnerable people in some respects, and it was just heartbreaking to see, particularly in your own city. Like, I'm born and bred in Dublin. Like, I want to love Dublin, and I want to love how it's run and everything about it. But it's hard to love a city when it doesn't look after its most vulnerable.
So I have just to thank you for this conversation. I think it was interesting and nice to have you, and I hope to see you soon. I don't know when, because
yeah, it would be lovely to see you in real life. We've had so many Zooms and Skypes and WhatsApps in the last few months, but
we have to wait and see what's happened in the reality, really.
sure, yeah.
So
it's been a pleasure.
Thank you again, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. I'll see you soon.
Yes.
Cool. Bye.
Bye bye.